And I'm Katie.
And we're going to talk about our first prototype for our entry in the DFW Nerd Nighters game design competition.
So this is our lovely first prototype and our first set of rules.
So fancy.
Oh my gosh, so crazy.
Fancy note card.
And Sharpie, beautiful. They were so beautifully drawn. Most of these are beautifully drawn by Jess, best artist we have. So in this game, this is going off of the idea from our last video about controlling armies. So what we created was a game where you kind of draft an army and then build up your ranks and then just kind of fight. And it's first to 3 battles wins. So you kind of win land. Do you want to explain the cards?
So there are 3 different kinds of cards. There's cavalry. As you can see, it's a very well drawn horse.
Oh, it's beautiful.
An archer, very beautiful arrow, and a spearman. Definitely a spear. And so how it works is in each round, in each battle for land, you set all of your units into rows, and there are 3 rows, and then you score it by counting up attack scores by unit in each row, and so you get 3 rows per battle, and then whoever wins the most rows, I think, would win the battle. And how these arrows work is that the unit that they're pointing to gets a bonus if they have an arrow pointing to them. So if this was in the first row and this guy was in the second row and this guy was placed here, then he would have 2 attack that round.
Mm-hmm. So every card gets a base of 1 attack. And we also had weaknesses against each other as well. So I think...
So archers were strong against spearmen. Spearmen were good against cavalry, and cavalry were good against archers. And so based on the strengths and weaknesses, those units would get -1 attack if they were weak or strong against something.
Mm-hmm. So how the turn order kind of went was you'd draft 10 cards, and so you each kind of draw a bunch of cards. And then each turn you'd have 3 turns where you'd place down your rows. So you can choose however many men of your 10 to place down each row. So you could place 3. Let's say we place down 3. And then we'd reveal them. And then we place down, let's say, 2 more, and then we'd reveal them at the same time as well, and so on and so forth until you get 3 rows from your 10. And then it would go into the battle phase where we'd just calculate how much each army would attack, and then whoever had the highest won. So this is kind of a bare bones alpha prototype of a game, very starting off.
So the things we liked about this prototype, we liked how the positioning of the cards mattered and how they got bonuses depending on where they were. But the thing about it was sometimes it seemed like you had no reason to use the spearman, who can only give bonuses to someone who's directly under him, or the archer, who has 3, but no one would want to put him on top, and so this would be like the best situation, but since this takes up the entire space, you can't move him here.
Yeah, and so this way he would give bonuses to 2 characters instead of just 1, but then it would make the spearman kind of useless, because the spearman wouldn't give any bonuses to an in-betweener.
Yep.
So
a few changes that we wanted to make were we took out those arrows that only pointed up and down, and we changed the spearman to affect the left and his right side instead. what other changes did we make?
We also took out the weaknesses because it just got really complicated to calculate weaknesses against each other, and we tend to forget them during the battle phase, especially every time we played them. And when we played them really late at night, it was just really difficult.
And it felt a bit like too many numbers. It was just all numbers. It wasn't very fun.
Yeah. So once we made those changes, we played again. It still felt like a numbers game. It just felt like, oh, I have the greater. I'm 17. You're 13. I win. It was just like that. What we still really liked was the fact that you were kind of controlling units and creating this army and drafting up the army. What we wanted combat to be more fluid. So that's something that we're going to change for our next prototype, is somehow fix it so it's not just I have a bigger army than you do. Because we felt that if you had the right cards and just kind of laid them out correctly, you just automatically win. The combat seemed pretty boring, so that's something we'll change for our next prototype. And what was also problematic was this was very hard to add any more than just 2 players, because calculating was just it was really boring to do. So that's something that we'll definitely change for our next one.
Yeah. And so in our next video, we'll talk about what we're going to do for our next prototype. See you then.